Hi, I'm Paul Jacobs from Jump Advisory Group, and I'd be thrilled and delighted if you would join me on our latest Jump Advisory podcast, Recruitment Leaders Unlocked, where I'm talking to a very special guest, Paul Goodman, the founder and director of Goodman Masson, an award-winning, multi-award-winning finance recruitment business, one of the largest now in the UK, most successful. Paul's insights into developing the business from its early days in a basement right up to its position now as a international recruitment company that is renowned for taking care of its staff, looking after the people who look after them, is fascinating. He provides amazing insights into stepping back and developing succession planning, growing a hugely successful leadership team, and really a very interesting insight into the way in which the business remains flexible and open to ideas and creativity. Please listen in. I think you'll find it very entertaining, hugely enjoyable, and I know you'll take away a huge amount from Paul's amazing advice. So I look forward to seeing you very soon for the latest edition of Recruitment Leaders Unlocked. And welcome to the latest episode of Recruitment Leaders Unlocked with me, Paul Jacobs from Jump Advisory Group. And in this episode, my absolute special guest is my good friend, Paul Goodman, who is the founder and director of Goodman Masson. Welcome, Paul. How are you?
Yeah, good, Paul. Nice to see you. And how are you?
I'm all right, the two Pauls.
Yes.
I'm thrilled and delighted to have you on our podcast, Paul. I know you've got a really amazing story to tell us about the growth and development of your incredible business, an incredible award-winning business. I've lost count. I was on the website earlier. I started to try to count the awards and I became mesmerized and almost hypnotized and gave up after about, it felt like 200. So you'll tell us a bit more, I'm sure, in a moment. I think just to begin this podcast, just tell us a little bit about you, who you are, of course, and how you got into our wonderful industry, the recruitment industry. Just a brief description of you and the organisation, I guess.
Okay, so I'm Paul Goodman. I'm just a scally from Birmingham, although I don't know if you can still hear the accent. Like most other people, I fell into recruitment, and I'm a recruiter. I'm not a business professional. I don't have any other qualifications. I'm just a plain vanilla recruiter, and I happen to start a business.
I think you're being very humble. I think you're more than just vanilla. You could be a bit chocolatey, perhaps. Let's at least put a flavour on it.
Those are the facts.
Yes. Well, it's true. Most of us fell into recruitment. It's a bizarre thing, isn't it?
Yes. I mean, I first I was on a bus going down to Sussex, and the bus stopped at Horsham, and I noticed there was a shop window and it had jobs in it. And this was my first awareness that there was a recruitment industry.
Yeah. But you remember the shop windows with the cards? I used to have to write the cards.
Yes, it had cards in it. Yeah.
I remember that well from my Alfred Marks Bureau days. Just to sort of give some context for today's podcast to our lovely audience, what we want to talk about really is about leadership, Paul, and about your leadership of Goodman Masson and how that's changed and evolved and developed over the years. And from your perspective, your impact as a leader on the growth and development of your organisation. I think those are the kind of lessons, if you like, that I know our audience would be really keen to hear about. So let's get straight in to the first question, if that's all right with you. I suppose let's start here. What leadership principles have been the foundation of your success, Paul, and how have they evolved and changed as your business has grown?
Well, I think we have to start with some context, because this was a business that came out of the late 80s, early 90s. I mean, I think people already on the call will have realised that you talking about alpha marks and the cards in the window that we're both people who've been around in the industry for a long time. But back then, there was very limited employment protection. And it wasn't just recruitment, but service industries in London, I suspect, were pretty grim places to be working. And we did have some basic principles about wanting to treat people better, but I think that amounted to not much more than paying people their commission properly and being civil to people. So the basic ideas were there, but the reality was, of course, somewhat different in that we had to eat and feed ourselves. This was a business that started in a basement in number 2 Bath Street. And with my northern tone, nobody ever understood where I was talking about because you were all calling it Bath Street.
It is Bath, as a Bath.
Bath.
Yeah.
In a basement, and we had to live, and the only way to live was to make placements. So we worked long hours, sat in the basement, and it was tough. But this is what you had to do if you wanted to get a business off the ground.
And of course, we haven't said that yours is a very well-known finance recruitment business. I think, am I correct in saying that it's now the largest in London? Or what's the current status?
Yeah, we did. I'm not quite sure of the stats, but it was absolutely a strategy that we decided that the thing we wanted to be famous. There were 2 things we wanted to be famous for. One was being the largest financial recruiter in London. It depends what measurements you take to say whether we are or we're not, but there's no doubt that we're absolutely one of the main players. And the other was to treat our people better than any other business. And those were the 2 overarching principles that we decided that we wanted to be famous for.
And I mean, we'll perhaps get back to that, but I think I joked, but very seriously. I mean, your organisation has commanded the awards nights. Every time I go to one of the awards nights, I see you popping up, surrounded by people. And the wonderful thing about it is that most of those awards relate to the way in which you conduct yourselves as an organisation, how you treat your people, how they feel about your organisation. And as you said, it was a guiding principle in the early days and something you've sustained over all of these years. And how many years now, Paul, has the business been in existence?
Well, we started the business in 1993.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say that those principles didn't really start to be put into action probably until about 2008.
Right.
It took time because there were, like in any other business, there were difficulties, and do I look back and think things could have been done quicker and could have been done better? Of course they could, but that wasn't the way it worked out. Before we could start to really work with those principles, the first thing was that the partnership which started the business was diverging. Mark and I had different. Our views were different on what we wanted to do, and we had to go separate ways. It just made sense that we did, but that took time. And then, of course, there was the question of bringing in a new management team and reorganizing the business so that it was capable of doing the things that we wanted it to do. So there was a lot to do before we could really get going, and there were a lot of setbacks.
Yes,
as you would expect. I mean, I think there's a question coming later about sort of how you sort of escape from that small business to growing into something larger.
It's
a very difficult process.
It is, isn't it? And as you say, in the early days, you're sort of killing, as it were, to survive. You're eating what you kill to survive.
Yes.
It's a pretty raw experience, but very quickly it develops into something else. And during those early years, and then as you pointed out, as you grew, did your sort of leadership style change? Can you sort of think through how your mindset changed during that period?
Well, I think for quite a long time, it was difficult to actually be able to change mindset because we were living hand to mouth.
Yeah.
And which is normal. But yes, so after Mark and I resolved the future of the business, my cousin and now business partner, one of my business partners, Avi Bradman, came into the business. It's a nice little story. Avi joined as a temp to help us sort out the finance department for 10 weeks before he went off on his honeymoon. And
never left.
20 years later, he's still there, but he's now the executive chairman. So
he's probably hanging in so he can get to receive the first pay packet that you forgot to pay him, I suspect.
Yeah, probably. Probably. But Avi and I came to the realization that if the business was really going to make the progress we really wanted to make, we had to change something.
Yeah.
And that's when we were fortunate in being able to bring Guy Hayward into the business. And that all arose. Guy wrote to us one day, and I can remember Avi walking in to see me and saying, "You know what? We should talk to this chap." But from the moment that Guy walked in, there was absolutely a connection. He was talking about the things that I had always wanted to do and the principles that had always been the ones in terms of running a business and the leadership principles and how you treat people that had always been in my head. And in that, I could see that here was the opportunity to make the business what we wanted to make it. So that was another seminal moment in the development.
Absolutely. Now I'm going to ask you a kind of odd question here. It's not unlike me, as you're probably well aware. Can you share a time, Paul, when your leadership approach backfired? What did you learn?
About 15 years of it, Paul.
What did you learn from that experience? And did it shape your future decisions? Come on, spill the beans.
The time when my leadership approach backfired.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think I was prepared and educated to be a leader. I had a lot of. I have a lot of qualities that are incredibly helpful in being a leader, but I never had the benefit of much formal training in that respect. However, two people came along who made a big difference in the business as non-executives on our board. They were Jeff Grout, whose name you probably heard. Jeff was for many years the chief executive of Robert Half. He's a charismatic guy, very capable of picking out the key points and giving really great nuggets of advice. And Jeff really helped and was incredibly influential on me. And then a chap called Ulf Wickström, Ulf, a Swedish guy whose background was in or is in assessment of people. Right. And he also was somebody who I was able to spend time with and get some mentoring from, who was able to help me develop, to help to support my development, and they were both people who were incredibly helpful and influential. I don't know if I've answered your question, but
you did a great job in not answering my question. Actually,
okay. What was the question again? I'll try again.
I wanted to know if there was anything that you'd done that backfired, and from that you'd learnt how to turn that to advantage, use it to advantage down the line.
Well, yeah, I think what backfired was that I at certain points didn't have the courage of my convictions to follow my principles, and as a consequence, I think the business suffered. There were times when some of the things that were being said into my ear about what should be done were against my instincts.
Okay.
And I think I should. And I think I should have stuck to my. I think I should have stuck to my principles.
Really interesting. That's really interesting. I often say to people that I trust my instincts. I often say to people, trust your instincts, because we call them instincts. But I think my definition of instincts is experience. There's something going on in your head saying, don't do this or do this, that is linked to your previous experiences. And inevitably, if you ignore them, as you've just said, you regret it afterwards. And I think as you get older, if I can use that, if I can put parenthesis around that, as you get older, you realise that actually listening to your own voices and following your own instincts is generally a good thing to do.
It is. And of course, Paul, you're one of the only people in recruitment I know that's older than me. There's very few of us.
Thank you for reminding me, Paul. It's much appreciated.
I will remind you again at some point.
I have no doubt about that. Thank you. Okay. Well, we all know, of course, that the recruitment industry is fast-paced, and we know right now, particularly, that it's never been at a faster pace. The change is unbelievable. I suppose that's true of any industry sector, but ours is demonstrating huge change at the moment. It also has high pressure, as we know. So, I mean, from your point of view, driving performance in the business, how do you balance that whilst maintaining and developing a strong and engaged company culture? So getting the results that the business needs and that the people in it need, but at the same time maintaining that culture you said earlier about supporting people, valuing people, and so forth.
So I think what we've tried to do is turn this on its head a little bit, because getting performance is, in our view, more about creating an environment in which people can perform and they want to perform. And there's just certain well-trodden views that people have that I don't agree with, and I think we as a business don't agree with.
Yeah.
So, for example, the idea that trust is earned. I think when somebody walks into the business on day one, they are to be trusted. You can lose trust, but this idea that you look at people and say, well, they're not good enough until they prove to me they're good enough, I think weighs down on people and is disrespectful. But when I talk about creating an environment, I mean, first of all, it's just about basic stuff. And not everybody does it. It's about walking in on day one, having a PC, a laptop that works, having your email set up, having your desk all set up, all that basic stuff. Yes. And then it goes on to, well, what database are you going to work on? What candidates are you going to work on? What clients are you going to work on? So making sure that people have the tools for the job is the very first thing. Setting up for success, if you like.
Yes.
Then there's the question of reward, so that people actually understand that they've got a great reward scheme and can see the consequences of what they do. One of the things that has always surprised me is how few people read and understand their bonus scheme.
Yes, I know.
And actually, just sort of pushing people to sort of, I say to new joiners, read it and understand it, because it will inform you as to exactly what's possible here and what you can, and what's in this for you. Yeah. So I think, reward and, and our rewards are good,
yes.
are very good. Reward and, so, you're well set up, you've got good reward, you've got
yep.
good, you've got good rewards. I think clarity of management is incredibly important. I know that the use of metrics is controversial, but we all need metrics.
Yes.
I think the thing is that they shouldn't be a stick to beat people with.
No.
They should be a tool for people to help them to run their desks, so that they can look for them. So you can look for yourself and see, look, my priority this week is clearly that I have insufficient vacancies, or that I've got jobs or my priorities, I need to get some CVs to the jobs that I have.
Yes.
So these are the actions I'm going to take, and give people the chance to actually sort of think for themselves and work
yes.
it out for themselves, rather than have to be told what to do all the time, and live in this and live in a didactic, instructive environment, if you like. Let that self-responsibility come through. And what comes with that is that people step up. You really see people grow when they take on that responsibility. So and also sort of you see them imprint their own personality on the job. Don't want autonomans doing recruitment, reading from a script. You want real people with real personalities who can build rapport and relationships.
That's completely true. I actually, just to pick up a couple of your points that I think are really fascinating. This point about trust. I guess it's the definition of trust. When people start, as you correctly said, you need to show them that they're valued, that you've prepared for their arrival, that they feel welcomed and supported by their managers, by their peer group, and so forth. And that is super important. It's super important. I guess the definition of trust is you've taken them on, so you trust them. Otherwise, why offer them a job in the first instance? But it's, I suppose, an acknowledgement that they're at this point new to the business and they need support, coaching, development. And on that premise, presumably, you keep very close to your new people to make sure that they're receiving the correct development and coaching in those early weeks and early months.
So yes, that's a combination of our L&D team, sort of learning and development. I have to remind myself of all the acronyms that weren't there many years ago. There's the L&D team, but it's also the responsibility of the manager. There is a period of ramp which we have to get people through. They need to hit certain targets in order to get promotion from trainee to being a consultant, and that's important. So yes, we're absolutely on that.
Yeah.
It's not a question of you can give trust, but that doesn't mean you have to abandon somebody at their desk.
Correct.
There's a big difference between trusting somebody and saying, "There you go." As happened to people of our generation. Here's the Yellow Pages, son. Here's a telephone. Go make some money. That's not the definition of trust.
No.
There is giving trust, but then there is actually giving the training, giving the development opportunities, and the coaching and the mentoring and the management that goes with that.
Yeah, no, and I totally agree with that sentiment. And I think the other point you make about metrics, and again another acronym here, the acronym no one wants to hear, KPIs. It's almost a swear word these days. But you make a really brilliant point about this, that it's not about beating people up with KPIs on metrics. It's about giving them the roadmap for success. And in your business, how many staff have you now got, Paul? It's quite a considerable number.
It depends how you measure it, but say 150.
Yeah, so you're a sort of, an SME is up to 250, but to my mind, you're a sizable business. And you've got many examples of colleagues who have been consistently and highly successful over the years. And if you then look at the metrics attached to those people, you can provide new people with the roadmap for success by saying, look, statistically speaking, if you get X number of roles in, or you make X number of meaningful calls a day or a week, or you get X number of interviews arranged, and so forth, we have the hard facts that tell us that you will make X, Y, and Z in terms of placements or contractor numbers or whatever. That's the point you're making, that it provides that roadmap. And I think, my experience, and you've made a great point, is that very few people use those metrics. And I ask consultants all the time about ratios. And I would say 2/3 of the time they don't know their metrics or ratios. And I don't blame them for that lack of knowledge. I look at the people that run the business and say, well, why aren't they being provided with that information? Why aren't you insisting that's followed? And so it's great to hear you talk about this, Paul, because your business has been a huge success. And yet underlying that culture is this kind of strict, or if you like, disciplined attitude to here's the things you need to do to be successful.
It is true. We think of ourselves as being a data-led business, but it's not enough on its own to be data-led. It has to come with, and we started talking about some of it, the various things that we're doing to create a great working environment and a supportive working environment. It's not enough just to be a data-led business. Yeah. I've always taken the view that it is not enough just to be in business to say I want to make money. There has to be some more. There has to be some more to it than that.
Yes, of course.
And I think the view that I just want to make money is quite old-fashioned now. But although there are still practitioners out there who think it, but I think that if you can manage to find the balance between treating your people really well and educating people so that they understand how to make use of metrics and numbers and the story that is in the numbers for their benefit, I think you're onto a good wicket. It's not easy to do. Yeah. It's a very fine balance to find. And I'm sure that businesses can do it, are more successful for it.
I completely agree, and I think but if you look outside of our industry, if you look at other industries, and you even if you examine the best and the largest corporations in the world, you find they have very tight processes. People follow a plan; they follow the script, so to speak. Now, I just want to move on and ask you a quick question here, Paul, about the biggest challenge you feel you faced when you were scaling up your business. And how you managed it and overcame it.
Well, it is this question of getting to escape velocity, if you like, because I can remember for years being in the position of being a billing manager, and I still think billing manager is the hardest job in recruitment. It is incredibly challenging. The demands of having clients, people to support, wanting to make your own placements, the constant interruptions, the constantly being dragged into meetings because the company wants to do this and the company wants to do that. I still stand by the fact that billing management is the toughest job in recruitment. I agree. Anybody who does it and does it well has my absolute admiration. So I've forgotten the question, Paul.
Okay, I'll go back. So what's the biggest leadership challenge you faced when scaling your business, and how did you overcome it?
Well, actually it was, so as Guy Hayward, Andy Michael, Chris Porges, and John Lawson came through as our chief financial officer, it became clear to me that my role was becoming questionable in that sort of, well, what was I doing and how was I able to help and what was I going to do for the business? So how to kind of reinvent myself in that new environment, because now we had people who, we'd brought in a layer of management and they were really doing a great job of growing the business. So there were a couple of things. One is that I thought I needed to be genuine in letting go, and actually not pretending to let other people make decisions, but actually really to empower the business. And I was chatting to Guy Hayward just the other day, and he said to me that that was actually one of the things that I had done really well was make him feel take responsibility for decisions, that I was accepting of the fact that there would be mistakes.
Yes.
Because of course there will be. We all make them. Just because you start a business and the founder doesn't mean you don't make mistakes. Everybody does. And nobody grows if they don't make mistakes. It has to happen. It's a part of the process. So I think that was definitely one thing I would say that was a very sound move. I think also, I would describe myself as being somebody who most of the time has a very even temperament, and I think I'm actually. Some people might disagree with this, but I'm actually quite a gentle personality in a lot of ways, and consequently, I've been able to sort of just play that role of there are other people who are hard-headed business people, and I don't need to go around and ape their behaviour. I can be myself within the business. Try and be supportive to people and try and help the people who are struggling. Try and help to deal with the challenges that the challenges that people are facing. So really just that sort of reinvention of myself and being and transforming from from a founder into a I don't want to say an owner, but just that more oversight type of
more
role.
Strategic,
And it's not easy, not an easy transition. There was a lot to learn.
It was really fascinating, Paul, that you had the presence of mind to step back and give ownership to others to run your business. Come back to that word trust again, but also I think to have the honesty, if you like, to look at yourself and say, well, okay. Is this role of running the business really me? Could others do it maybe as well as me or better than me? And how comfortable am I in allowing that transition to take place? And your perspective was, I'm comfortable with this. Perhaps I'm not able to demonstrate the real me in this current role. Maybe others could step in and take the reins. And I think that takes a huge amount of courage and self-awareness.
Well, Paul, you hit the nail on the head when you said, because one of the dawning realizations, which dawned pretty quickly, was these people are better than me. And I would be a fool not to allow them to take advantage of their own talents and to make the business a better business. And why would I want to get in the way? Why would I want to get in the way of that? Now, it is a I hate the term. Everything's a journey these days, isn't it? But it just is. I think I was. First of all, I had people like Jeff Grout and Paul Goodman and these sort of people, but were incredibly helpful to me in in getting through that journey, because it wasn't easy, but it was really a question of getting through that and coming out the other side, and starting to let go of people. And actually, it's a really interesting thing that actually I could argue, I could make a very good case for saying that my contribution to Goodman Masson has in many ways been about the things I didn't do rather than the things that I did do. Because I could have chosen to stop those things, but I didn't.
That's a fantastic statement, I think. Most people in our industry, and bear in mind, the majority of recruitment businesses in the UK are, by definition, micro or SME businesses. Most people that own their businesses either don't have the ability to step away from running their businesses and develop others, or choose not to do that. And I think that can be a real suppressor in terms of growth. So I think that's an amazing insight. I want to kind of follow that on, really, Paul. And I mean, it kind of leads neatly into the next question, so we can explore this perhaps a bit more. That as a business grows, as your business grew, leadership sort of shifts away from you being on that front line. You talked in the early days of, we've got to make money, I've got to feed my family, I've got to pay the mortgage, to a different position where you're thinking, okay, if we're really going to grow this, have I got the right attributes to do this? And I guess the question I wanted to ask is, how do you actually inspire then and develop future leaders within your team? And it's not just the senior people that you've mentioned, but the people also that are sort of next in line with those people. And was there a sort of strategy for you? Did you really sit down with your leaders and go, what does succession planning look like? How do we develop those people? How do I develop my immediate reports, so to speak, and how do they develop theirs? Was there a succession planning strategy for you?
So there is an L&D team with an L&D strategy, and there are programs for bringing through the next layers of management. I think that what we've had, and I am so grateful for, is a great deal of long-term stability within our senior management team, and I think that. Well, I mean, first of all, there are simple financial things that, well, they may not be simple financial things. They are incredibly important financial things. So one of the things that I think is incredibly important, and Avi Bradman put this so neatly, he may not have been the first to say it, is, we don't need to be greedy. And it's so true. And we've created an EMI structure, which I think is
option for the people that are listening that haven't heard.
Executive Management Incentive Scheme.
Yes.
But yes, which gives people a very real opportunity to participate in the wealth that the business is capable of generating. And I think that I wouldn't underestimate. You can have as many succession plans as you like.
Yes.
But I wouldn't underestimate the significance of having those sorts of schemes. That they are incredibly important. I mean, I don't know if it's as easy these days as it is to start a business as when I did it. I mean, there's so much more compliance and preferred supplier lists and rules and regulations that and costs that come with it these days that I think make it a lot harder. And I think that, and also sort of obviously employment legislation is, and cost is something that government is
very much
is constantly adding increments to, which makes it more difficult. So you need to be in a situation where you're making it possible for people to say, I'm better off here
Yeah.
than I am to go and do my own thing. I don't know if you've noticed recently, but I have noticed a difference in what people are now doing when they go and start up. Is actually they're not so much interested in creating a business; they're interested in creating a job for themselves, because they're looking at it and saying, too expensive, too much hassle, et cetera, to employ these people. But if they've got really good skills, they can say, well, I can do enough here. Now, it's got risks involved with it, because if markets change, and if you haven't got any colleagues, and there's all sorts of risks with it. But it is something that is a lot of people are looking at it that way now.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating that an interesting point that you make, and it depends on what people want. I mean, you had a real vision for your business in growing it, scaling it, hence the reason for bringing in a really outstanding management team. And also, we haven't mentioned it, but your business is very dynamic. You've opened offices abroad. I think, if I'm correct in saying, you're in Germany and in the States. Is there anywhere else I may have forgotten?
Yes, there's a business developing in Amman of all places, but Germany and the United States are the main places outside of the UK.
So I know your business is always evolving and changing, and it's very dynamic. And I think this is linked to this point that you have a management team and people within the organisation that want to stay, that want to grow, that see the benefits for the business and let's be clear, for themselves in the growth of the business. And that keeps the business fresh. It keeps it energised and I suppose contemporary. And I guess that it comes right back to that first point you made to me, Paul, about from the very beginning in that basement, recognising that it's absolutely vital to take care of the people that work with you, that you look after them because they look after you.
So Paul, there's more there's some more points I want to add, because I think when I think about the flexible working scheme that we introduced to the business and the way in which that's changed people's lives. We've got one guy, his wife had triplets. They decided to move and live in Bali because basically they could. It was a lot easier out there to fund the cost of the childcare that they needed. He's adjusted his working hours accordingly, and I suppose he's up in the night anyway with triplets. So what difference is it going to make? But that has enabled somebody to create to remain within the business, create themselves a lifestyle, and it is also part of it's part of our culture too. I don't know when he's working. I don't really know where he is. Yeah. But I know he does his job.
But he's working.
The metrics tell you that.
Yes.
And the numbers tell you that. And I think this is one of the things that one of the sort of the benefits that we've created. I think we've also done incredibly. I mean, I'm constantly told by people who've experienced it that our maternity policy is really great. That's something, and that combined with the flexible working seems to enable people to organise their lives as they want to organise their lives, so they can deal with their professional responsibilities and their personal responsibilities. And I think that's a huge part of it. So when we're talking about don't be greedy, if you like.
Yes.
It's not just about money. It's about having that open-mindedness and flexibility to allow people to do the things they actually want to do and that they need to do, and not have an opinion about whether they should do it or what they should or shouldn't be doing. Yeah. Just to give them the freedom.
It's an incredible insight, Paul. We are sadly coming towards the end of this podcast, and I've got a couple of very quick questions.
Okay.
All right, here we go. So if you could go back to your first leadership role, when you started the business, what advice would you give yourself about leading a recruitment business? So look at the younger Paul Goodman. Looking back, what advice would you give yourself?
First of all, when it comes to advice, I think I've mentioned to you before, I think the greatest bit of advice I've ever heard was given by Sam Walton, who started Walmart. He said, always put the shower curtain inside the bath. It would be about being true to principles, and just coming back to the things I've talked about before, just having had that little bit more courage of my convictions, to be true to the principles I had, and that's what I would say to people. Believe. If you've got some principles and you think they're sound principles, then believe in them and stick with them.
That's a brilliant piece of advice, and actually, I think you've managed to answer my second question without me asking it, which was going to be.
What was it?
Well, I'll tell you what it was, but you've already answered it. If you had one piece of advice for any recruitment leader, what would it be? And the answer, of course, is stay true to your principles. Yeah, keep I think. No, I know I cannot improve upon that advice. So I'm gonna say thank you, Paul, for. I think it's been an absolutely amazingly insightful and fascinating conversation with you. I think what I've learned from this, and I'm sure others that will be listening and watching, is how important it is to be true to yourself, how important it is to value the people that work with you, to give them the opportunity to share, as you said, the wealth of the development of the business, to provide autonomy and freedom, to be flexible in your attitudes, not too fixed with your thoughts and your processes, to be agile in that sense. And I think most importantly, just this last point you made, which is be supportive of the people, not just about from a work perspective, and you certainly provide the tools to people to enable them to be successful. But I think make sure that you take care of them outside of work. I mean, the brilliant point about the maternity cover is a fascinating and I think a tremendously useful piece of advice to give others. In the end, and I guess we've always said this about recruitment. I know you'll nod your head about this. Recruitment's always been about people. It's always been, look after your people. They look after your business. People buy people. There's always that people word in every one of those analogies. And I think what you've done, and massive congratulations to you and your amazing team. What you've done is develop a phenomenal business that really cares about its people. And I have no doubt that transfers very obviously into the way you treat your candidates and your clients too. So I thank you, Paul. And I'm going to stop talking, let you finish off. Is there anything else that you'd like to add to this terrific podcast?
No, Paul, just thank you for having me. It's been great fun. Thank you.
Well, I've loved having you here, Paul. And for everybody that's been listening, I hope you've enjoyed this. Please tune in to our next Jump podcast. It'll be coming around your way very soon. Thanks again, Paul. And I'll look forward to speaking to you again very soon. Take care.
Thank you, Paul.